Well, welcome to another Humboldt Tea Time, and we're here today in the Eureka Visitor Centre. Thank you so much indeed to them for hosting us again today. And my guest today is a very familiar face around Eureka, Brendan Fearon. Brendan, so nice to see you. Possibly known better as the horse guy, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I became the new guy. The guy prior to me was a guy called Marty LaRoe from Wisconsin, and he used to tell me, he said, "You'll get the title eventually. You'll be the new guy."
And then you'll be the
And I'm
guy.
the old guy. And Ray's auto place 2 blocks away, still, when I get the truck repaired, he used to say, "That's Marty's truck."
Well, you're established now. Now, let's have some tea. Now, you brought your own tea.
Oh,
It's
yeah, of
tea
course,
time, but
of
we'd
course.
already pre-made this, which is a combination of PG Tips and Earl Grey, which is very British, isn't it?
Yeah, of
Exactly.
course.
Now, the reason we're sitting here in the Eureka Visitor Centre and not in Westminster Abbey is because our invitations got lost in the mail.
Catherine, Princess Catherine, the lady in my life, is,
So I'm going for it anyway.
Yeah, the lady in my life is very upset, and I said she could take Meghan's place
because she's not there.
Because Meghan's not going.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, and so, but she said the problem would be coming back for little Ardies or whatever the Rugrat's name is.
I think it's Archie, I'm not sure.
Archie.
Archie.
I'm calling him Artie. It sounds like a cartoon character. Well, yeah. Trouble is getting back for his 4-year-old's birthday party. But
Well, we wanted to have our guest for this coronation weekend, even though we're not there.
yeah.
But I do want to know what brings someone from Liverpool all the way across the world to Eureka. I mean, I know how I ended up here, but how did you end up here, Brendan? Because you've had some time in New York, I
Oh,
believe.
yeah. I've spent a decade in Eureka. In fact, it's my 10th anniversary at the end of the month.
Congratulations.
I'm 1 month short of 10 years in Eureka, and I love it here. The sky that you can see today reminds me of my childhood.
Well, yes, this is very Liverpool,
Yeah,
isn't it?
this is the weather of my childhood, and I've always felt that I lived in a kind of there's a meridian that runs across the globe. I began in Liverpool and I moved eastward to Manchester, and then I went to Amsterdam, and then I shot over to New York, and then I ended up in Eureka. And I've always lived in this sort of line across the globe.
Well,
So-
even New York to Eureka is quite a jump, so how did that happen? Because you were doing
yeah.
Carriage Rise in New York.
I was.
Yes.
I was doing Carriage Rise in New York, and the old guy, Marty and I had worked together driving carriages back in the mid-1980s around Central Park. And in the Christmas of 2012, he was visiting New York City. And at that point, I was just about done. I always loved working in the park. Central Park is delightful. But everything that went around it, the effort to get to work, the impatience of life in a city environment, the extremity of weather, and Marty said, "I have a solution to your problems." I said, "What's that?" He said, "Buy my business in Eureka, California." To which I said, "Where is
Why not?
Eureka, California?" And I flew here in the middle of January. Middle of January, and I sat in that restaurant next door there, and it was tippling, it was fizzing down with rain. And I said, "Is this as bad as the winter gets?" And they said, "Oh yeah, this is as bad as the winter gets." And I said, "Oh," and I said, "Now how hot does it get in the summer?" And they said, "Oh, 70, 72 Fahrenheit." You know, and that was it. I said, "The weather of my childhood."
That's quite different from New York.
And
when you were in New York, you became quite a celebrity because you even met. I'm sorry, this isn't up to Alan Wicker standards, but you met Alan Wicker, one of the most famous
I did
British
indeed.
TV interviewers.
Yeah,
And
he was what do you call him? A traveologist?
Well, he went all around the world, didn't he, doing interviews with famous people.
Yeah, and some not famous people. You can see that this book has only ever really opened at page 416.
That's where you're going to mention.
That's where I came in. Yeah, there we go. The handsome cabbie. And I went over this last night reading it, and the line I think that strikes me somewhere, I can't quite see it, is that how do you envisage yourself in 40 or 30 or 40 years? And to which I said, well, not driving a horse and carriage.
Oh, well, there you are.
And there we are 40 years later, and it's in print.
Well, it's a great souvenir, and he dedicated it to
Oh,
you as
he
well.
actually signed it. He's the great man himself. Recognized my mother at a book signing in my home of Liverpool. I think when he did the UK tour with the book, he knew the hometown of all the other people, all the other irrelevant people in this book, and so was expecting to see relatives. So my mother and I looked dramatically similar, and he addressed
recognised
her.
you.
He recognized her.
Now, you grew up in Liverpool.
Yes.
Was this the time of the Beatles and the Cavern and all the excitement when Liverpool really got onto the map?
I was 5 years old when they made Love Me Do. Mm-hmm. I was 6 years old when they appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show. I think I was more interested in Lego than Love Me Do, to be quite honest.
Which is understandable.
Yeah, and I was 12 years old when the Beatles disbanded as an entity. And my mother's generation had grown up in Liverpool, which was hard in the 1950s, just post-World War II, 40% of the downtown buildings having been bombed. And it was kind of grimy. And my mother's generation was just that little bit older than the Beatles thing. So she was like, you know, pop music was kind of not a thing for her. It was basically trying to raise a family and keep us fed, so to speak. So I didn't actually, I was aware of it. I was aware of Beatlemania, but I was a child. I wasn't really, it was only in the 70s when you began to see the solo works of both Lennon and McCartney and Harrison, and to a degree Starr. You saw them more as individuals than as this entity. But that is when people ask where I'm from, and I say Liverpool,
They just
they immediately say Beatles. It's this either that or the football club, which I'm a passionate fan of.
Oh, I thought you were an Everton supporter.
No. I just watch that because soccer's my addiction.
Oh, okay.
You know, or football,
yeah, get it right.
football. Football's my addiction. So I watch it. In fact, I know Chelsea are playing Arsenal a little later, and you know it's raining outside, so I can't work. I'm always been a passionate Liverpool fan. And
Now, next weekend, the 13th, Liverpool is hosting the Eurovision Song Contest, and I'm actually part of the show this year. I'm going to be hosting a little bit of it. So, as if Liverpool hadn't suffered enough, now they've had this show inflicted on them. But it's bringing that tradition of music. This is why the BBC chose Liverpool as the host.
Yeah. Well, it was initially Ukraine was the host.
That's right.
And then there was a toss-up between Liverpool and Glasgow.
That's right.
But Liverpool's always had this popular music tradition. I don't know if you visited there many times, but Liverpool boasts the city that has generated the most number-one hits on the pop charts ever. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's also you start putting in Cilla Black, and you've got Jerry and the Pacemakers, who actually hit number one before the Beatles.
Yes, they did. That's right.
You know, so there's always been a musical tradition that comes from the immigrant city. It's typical of a seaside town, a seaport. Yes. And the influence of what sailors brought back. Apparently, Liverpool were very inspired by the South, a lot of the music coming out of the southern United States, and that was because of the navigational link. The sailors would get off the boats, and they would be carrying their LPs or 45s or whatever they were in this, and this was the influence to Lennon and McCartney. This is what they were listening, and this is what was perhaps it would not have happened in an inland city to the same degree.
I think you're right, because the port of Liverpool was vital to the British economy.
Oh yeah,
and of course tea was the big trade, because that's how they transported tea to the US.
Yes. Well, tea actually originates in India, and as I was mentioning to you just the other day in passing, was the development of the clipper class, which is quite fascinating if you look at it nautically or navigationally. And in those days, of course, you had to go from England all the way around the Hook of Africa to get to India.
That's right.
And back. And in the 17th century, the tea houses were becoming prevalent in England, and that was the new and most fashionable thing. There was a lot of money in tea, and the actual shape of the boat was changed almost yearly, so you could get that extra couple of knots. They changed the shape of the sails, the number of masts, and they were known as tea clippers, and they were designed specifically for tea.
Absolutely. And there are still some around, actually, in the UK, but they're all obviously in museums, but some are in dry docks as well. But, of course, Liverpool, really, I think during your time there, the port disappeared, the docks disappeared.
Oh, yeah.
And the industries, and Liverpool fell into,
beyond
disrepair.
it was, I lived in Liverpool from 58 until I attended university at 76. So I did see very much the post-war decline, there were a lot of people, I think, of my age who were usually the better educated leave, who moved. You meet people from Liverpool all over the world, and of my age who moved at that point. But funnily enough, in the 1980s, there was a band called Wahheat, which was led by a man called Peter Wiley, who I knew very tangentially as a child. But he actually had a big hit in the 80s called Come Back. And Come Back is, sort of a tribute to Liverpool. He remained part of the Liverpool music scene, which has continued. Frankie Goes to Hollywood was a big one. The Teardrop Explodes, Echo and the Bunnymen. All came, all emanated from Liverpool. I guess it's just a musical city, but I think it's a lot of the Irish influence and the shanty influence.
Yes, I mean, Liverpool was actually one of the areas that the Irish, I would go as far as to say, colonised almost. There was a very strong Irish influence in that part of the UK.
You have a slightly Irish name yourself.
Well, I do, yes. Not from my father's side. From my mother was a Dubliner. She was 100% Irish, but my father's family went back centuries to the west of Ireland.
What I find fascinating about Liverpool and Dublin particularly, they've got some sounds that are almost the same, like Dublin, Liverpool, and tick, the TH side. In Liverpool, you got the tick, he's tick, and they use it exactly the same in Dublin. They use the expression tick as well to mean one who is stupid. So there's always been that, we always heard that Liverpool was the capital of Ireland. I've read a lot of social history of Liverpool, and in the census of 1860, 1 in 5 people in Liverpool were born in Ireland.
Wow, I didn't realise that.
And if we don't have them anymore. Telephone directories, you remember them from your childhood.
I was born in 1980.
As you flick through a Liverpool telephone directory, it's no different than a Dublin one.
No, that's true.
It's Mac this and,
So you made the transition across the Atlantic, and now you run the horse business.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to get a little bit controversial because some people are critical of your business.
Yes.
They don't like the fact that it even exists.
Yes.
But your horses, they are very well looked after.
Yes, I spend a tremendous amount of time with them. I think what is happening in the 20th century generally is you don't get it as much in a rural setting, and you certainly don't get it from people that live on ranches and work in Fortuna, in the dairy industry, in the ranching industry, and they come over and they go, wow, that's a great looking horse. And then you get people who come up and they know the breed, or they know the demeanor, and you can tell by their vocabulary. They've been around horses, they know horses, they come and I get story after story. I would say of 20 people approaching with a comment about the horse, 18 or 19 are positive. And the ones that are not positive are generally ignorant. And you expose that ignorance by just vocabulary. I say, well, point to the withers. Well, blah, 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 blah. I said, oh, you want to be talk to me about horses and you can't identify a very basic portion of the horse. And that's, you know, and then you have to, but here's the thing, in life generally, and not just around horses, you can never have a rational discussion with someone who is approaching you irrationally.
I found that.
Yeah, that's true of anything.
It's absolutely true. It doesn't matter.
And the one thing about animals is it injects this emotion, more, you know, in a way that, you know, so that I find a lot of projection, a lot of anthropomorphism. What I have found, and I won't repeat what people say to me sometimes, is that your greatest weapon is the camera. Oh, sorry, weapon is the wrong word. Defense.
Defense, yes.
You flip the camera on, and I said, would you repeat that, please? And then all of a sudden, people all of a sudden realize, oh, this is being recorded. We're not just in an anonymous one-to-one here now, you know, and all the F-bombs disappear. All of the cursing disappears, all of the...
But it's a fun thing that you do, because you do the tours of the downtown, but you also give the history of the area, even though you're not initially from here as well, and there are different types of tours.
History was, you know, has always been my passion, social history, modern history, not so much ancient history. I never understood the Greeks and the Romans, seems too long ago. But modern history, social history is very interesting to me. Yeah. How people actually live. There's a tremendous... man on the, I think it's on the Curiosity stream that does, we all know history, John, in terms of, oh, King this and Victoria that and Prince Albert and the alliance with the Habsburgs and all of that aspect is all written, but how did the likes of you and I live in the 1850s or the 1650s?
Well, you were around
or
then,
the 1550s. And as a man that goes into, like, literally how physical it was and how difficult it was. And how difficult it was for people that didn't have a whole army of servants to do stuff for them. It was like, it was a far more just physical undertaking. I remember visiting we're not going back into the ancient history, we're going back into the 1970s. My grandfather's people were from the County Down in the north of Ireland. His brother was a sheep farmer. And I remember in the 60s going to visit Uncle Willie, and they had their only source of water was a tap on the wall that came out of the wall, and the water came from the stream. It was always raining in Ireland, so there's plenty of water. And it would come down, and it was cold. That was it. No hot, no spigots or taps or sink or anything. And that was their life. And there was this charm growing up as suburban Liverpool. We had hot and cold running water, despite what you people from the south think. But I went to this place and it was like, yeah, it's cool. There's cows, there's sheep, and the only source of water, there was a toilet, but the toilet was like, when you were a kid, the toilet was always kind of foreboding. And it was at the end, right? It was this like, this sort of dungeon at the end of, you had to walk through this almost like cowshed thing to get into it. And that was not that long ago. You know, life was a lot more physical. And
yes, I visited distant relatives in Ireland in the 70s who had very similar living, because they were farmers. They lived very rustic lives.
Yeah, so it's, everything moves on. I think life generally gets, oh, my car, it's only at 66 degrees instead of 68, and, my air conditioning is like, just worldwide. I think the Western world is very, very soft compared.
Well, Brendan, I could sit here talking to you all day, and if I let you, we probably would. But of course, we have to get back to watch the coronation of our blessed leaders.
Are you going to be watching? I was reading my Daily Mail this morning to see how popular how popular he is or isn't, and I was sisters saying, well, he should be more expansive and.
Well, his sister's on the way out. I mean, the trouble is when they get the new family in the top, all the hangers-on sort of drift off. I don't think we'll be hearing much more from him, but you never know. And there was a very interesting 2-part documentary about this week about his brother, who I'm sure they don't want to show up, but he'll be there.
Which of the brothers?
Well, the unspoken one.
Oh, the unspoken one. He shall not be named. Apparently, he's the only one lower than Harry and Meghan in the ratings.
I wonder why that is. Well, Harry is going, but Meghan's staying home. She's
She can
come over and have tea with us.
Yeah. She's here in California and she's welcome. It's hard to say these goldfish bowls and how these people are. There's sort of I'm sure you've seen a satirical cartoon thing, and they do a thing on the Worldwide Privacy Tour.
Mm-hmm.
It's South Park.
Yes.
South Park.
That was very.
And his autobiography is called Wah. Which is rather, so I don't know how these people are. Just hard to say. And it's like I'm leaving the firm, but I'm not really leaving the firm.
No, and then he gave his children the title Prince and Princess, which I thought, well, that kind of sums it up.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you and I will ever be princes, but you never know.
I don't know.
There's loads of stairs for us to marry. Brendan, it's been an absolute delight. I hope you enjoyed your tea. We were talking too much.
Oh, no, I'm halfway down it. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, enjoy the coronation. Enjoy Eurovision next week from Liverpool. Give me away.
Yeah,
I'll give you away from the screen.
Yeah.
And thank you very much indeed for joining us for another Humboldt Tea Time. Thank you to our hosts at the Eureka Visitor Centre, as always. Brendan, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And we'll see you again for next week's Humboldt Tea Time very soon. Bye-bye.
Okay. Do a second take now?